fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker.
Welcome in, everybody. Tuesday morning edition, Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Give me a sec. We got mic issues. Surprise, surprise. See if I can get a new one before the new year. This is so annoying. How about now, Matt? How is my mic now? How is my mic now? Mike was literally
Test. All right.
This is ridiculous. I'm trying to put on a professional fucking show here.
Testing. Good. 3, 2, 1. Welcome in, everybody. Little Tuesday morning edition, Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Everybody in the live chat 2 days before Christmas. 1, I appreciate your support. 2, my Christmas gift to you is to get a new mic because this is getting ridiculous at this point. But I'll tell you what, we are now 36 or so hours away from Santa maybe coming down the chimney. But Torres, my other gift to you is actually a loaded Tuesday show. A lot still going on in the world of college sports. We're going to open Jeff Brohm. I've been trying to tell you for 2 weeks. I've been trying to tell you he's a candidate at Louisville. The rumors ramped up on Monday. By the way, Louisville plays a bowl game today, so we should get some sort of clarification here soon. We'll discuss that. From there, the USC-Notre Dame stuff went crazy yesterday, but what I think got lost in the shuffle, there are a lot of USC fans that are mad with Lincoln Riley, with USC on the decision to cancel this rivalry. We have some sound you got to hear. Then we will talk a little bit of basketball because the basketball world is humming. Monday night, Darren Peterson, another weird situation going on there with Kansas. What is really going on? Bill Self non-committal. And there is one program that I owe an apology to, a little bit of a Christmas Torres, Scrooge, the Grinch who stole Christmas. All of a sudden, I owe somebody an apology. So we're going to get to all that in a minute. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. 1, make sure you're subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. Admittedly, this is probably the last show before the holiday, but we hope everybody has a great holiday. I should mention that before we get to anything else. Thank you for tuning in here on a Tuesday morning. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple, Spotify as well. And click that little like button so that everybody knows how much you love the Torres Show. We appreciate your support. By the way, I did mention it in the chat. We have started a college sports newsletter, an email newsletter every morning in your inbox. This thing is going to be so important, so pressing as we enter portal season, NIL season. Things are about to get crazy. Click that link. It is completely free to subscribe. Also, before we get started, do want to thank our friends. Do want to thank our hotel and casino partners. Do want to thank Mint Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky, and the new Circa Sportsbook there. Okay, so look at the background there. By the way, that picture was taken from Torres's phone. How about that? So I was down in Nashville last week, went down to the Mint. Should mention, so Circa Casino is our official hotel and casino partner. We love the Circa Casino in Vegas. But here's the crazy thing. I know a lot of you can't get to Vegas, and so what you have to do is check out the brand new Circa Sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs. You can see it there, the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky. Okay, so all of the same great amenities of the Vegas property, beautiful new sportsbook. You can see it there in the Mint. And the bottom line is, listen, it's that time of year. You're taking a little bit of time off of work. You want a place to watch some games. You want a place to hang out. The best place to do it is the new Circa Sportsbook at Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. Okay, you can see it there. It looks exactly like the Vegas spot, by the way. It's unbelievable, but those pictures are from my phone. I was down there a week ago. It's only about 20 minutes from Bowling Green, Kentucky. It's only about 37 minutes or so because I did it wall to wall, Nashville to the Mint. Check them out. The brand new Circa Sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. And by the way, I've said it a few times, but as we get closer to March Madness, your boy Torres will be doing some live shows from the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky. And we really do appreciate their support. All right, with that said, it is a busy Tuesday in the world of college sports. It's a couple days before Christmas. Again, we appreciate you tuning in. No more time to waste. So let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day. I'll tell you what, I'll say this. I was thinking about this. There aren't very many stories in the world of sports that, in my opinion, are actually undercovered, okay? And so I bring it up because in this world where we have a million websites and podcasts and YouTube streams, am I crazy in thinking that I actually feel like the Michigan coaching job being open for 2 full weeks in the middle of December is like wildly undercover? My opinion, Michigan is one of the 10 best jobs in college football. And I think you can argue as we get deeper into this NIL era, and we're going to talk about resources and money above the revenue sharing number, I think it's only going to be a better job because it not only the history and the big house and the this and the that, but also because the bottom line is like you just need powerful, rich people that are willing to write checks to help support your program. If you don't believe me, just ask Kenny Dillingham, who was basically begging someone in Scottsdale to write him a $20 billion check the other day. Crazy world that we live in college sports. Okay. But the Michigan coaching job has been open for 2 weeks. We've done the full gauntlet of names. We've done, Kalen DeBoer. What if he loses to Oklahoma? Well, he didn't. So guess what? He ain't going anywhere. I don't think he was leaving to begin with. Kenny Dillingham, I just mentioned, signed that extension over the course of the last couple days. Jed Fish, not leaving Washington, just like I told you he wasn't. Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers, he's not going back to Michigan. And so I bring it up because over the last couple days, there has become a name that has emerged at the front of the line in terms of candidates for the Michigan football coaching job. And frankly, it is a name that I have told you for 2 weeks is a legitimate candidate for this coaching job, and that is Jeff Brohm. Okay, so Jeff Brohm, the Louisville head coach, awesome head coach, really good at what he does. And before we get to what I've said about it, let's just get you caught up on what is going on. And I should note, by the way, Louisville actually plays their bowl game today here on Tuesday. I believe it's a 2 p.m. Eastern start time in Boca Raton. And so I only bring it up because by the time you listen to this, there's a good chance that Jeff Brohm has commented on the Michigan job, given a non-statement about if he's interested or not. Or maybe by the time you listen to this transparently, he's openly said, I'm coming back to Louisville. We're figuring it out, all that good stuff. My guess, by the way, is immediately after the game, he's just going to give a big no comment. I love Louisville. It's my hometown, whatever. But I bring it up because let's just start with the basics, the news, the news element to this, okay? The news element to this is really over the last 24 or so hours, it feels like his name has emerged, not just from people like me on the outside, but from people who cover Michigan on a day-to-day basis, okay? Don't know who was the first to link Michigan to Jeff Brohm on the Michigan side of things, but I guess Sam Webb, who is a longtime writer. Now, Sam Webb, I know some Michigan people aren't necessarily like the biggest Sam Webb. I don't know the inner workings of all the Michigan media, but he was, as best I can tell, the first one to put it out there. I believe he works for On3, maybe 24/7. But Sam Webb did put out a story yesterday. And Matt, you could just post that tweet whenever you have a second. This is from Jeff Lightsley, who says, Michigan insider Sam Webb of 24/7, so I apologize, not On3, says Jeff Brohm is Michigan's top choice as of now. Says the two sides spoke yesterday, which would have been Sunday, and we should have an answer after Tuesday's bowl game. So again, we mentioned Louisville playing their bowl game over the course of the next few hours. By the time you listen to this, Louisville's bowl game may be That was the report that came out on Tuesday afternoon or Monday afternoon. And what I found interesting was this, is that we all know how this stuff works, right? Is that one side says a guy's interested, and generally the other side, the school that is hypothetically being poached, usually their media runs to the defense of the coach and says, that's not true, it's not happening, ignore the noise, blah, 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 this and that. Well, I bring it up because I found it interesting that right away, the people who cover Louisville, I'll actually give them a little bit of credit. They acknowledged, oh, these talks are real. They are happening, and we may lose our head coach. Matt, you could pop up the tweet from Ty Spalding. Now, Ty Spalding is a Louisville. I don't know exactly his relationship with Louisville, but he was referencing Mike Rutherford, who hosts a daily radio show in Louisville. And Ty Spalding's tweet said, a not-so-great update from Mike Rutherford at the top of the show regarding Jeff Brohm. Paraphrasing, Jeff wants to be at Louisville, but he isn't getting the NIL resources he wants in contract negotiations. Hey, Josh Hurd, who's the Louisville AD, let me be the first to say, figure it out. Go fundraise yourself if you have to. If you can't, you cannot be the AD here anymore. So that's what happened on Monday. Michigan reporters saying, hey, this thing is happening. We're talking. Not saying that he's going to be the next head coach, but that we're talking, that conversations are happening. And then the Louisville reporters, I give them credit. To their credit, they're basically saying, it's true. Our coach is talking to somebody else, and we'll see what happens. So I want to give my opinion on this here in just a few seconds. But I guess I should say my opinion hasn't really changed because I've been telling you this has happened for weeks now, okay? So listen, I'm not here to toot my own horn, but I guess I am here to toot my own horn because I don't know what else to say. Because you go back to the day that Sherrone Moore was fired, okay? And again, I was on the East Coast. I was traveling back and forth between Nashville and Mid-Kentucky Downs in Kentucky. And what I can tell you, and I think I've mentioned it, I was in the state of Kentucky the day that Sherrone Moore was fired. And let's just say I was around some people who maybe know a little bit about Jeff Brohm. And when Sherrone Moore got fired, they said to me, point blank, I don't know where we are in the pecking order for Michigan, but I do know that if Michigan calls, Jeff would be interested, okay? And so what I want to do, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just putting it on the record that I said this. This is from our episode. This is from a discrete hotel location somewhere on the Kentucky-Tennessee border. It was not Mid-Kentucky Downs. This was the show that I did the day after Sherrone Moore got fired. It was December 11th, I believe, was the date of the show. We're going to play some sound from that show really quickly. I think there was some weird internet connection in the hotel that day because the sound is a little bit off with my words, but just listen to what I told you and then listen to what has been reported over the last couple of days. Matt, you can play that sound. I will tell you one that I do think is on the table, and I will tell you this. I do think if you come at him right, I do think he would say yes. And that person is Jeff Brohm, okay? And so Jeff Brohm, first of all, I don't know how much he moves the needle on a national scale. He's an unbelievable head coach, okay? So first of all, let's never forget with Jeff Brohm. At Purdue, he took Purdue to a Big Ten championship game. Now, admittedly, it was in the Big Ten East, Big Ten West era, and, it had divisions and whatever. But he took Purdue to the Big Ten championship. He then goes to his alma mater, which is home at Louisville, and he's been awesome. Like, I don't know how many people realize this. 10-4 in year one, made the ACC championship game. 9-4 last year. This year, they started, 7-1 before Miller Moss got hurt? Correct me if I'm wrong here. Let's see here. They started 4-0, 7-1. They started 7-1, including a win at Miami. Miller Moss goes down. They lose 3 out of 4 to close the regular season. But even in his 3 years at Louisville, 10 wins, 9 wins, 8 wins, they'll probably get a 9th win in a bowl game. And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing about Jeff Brohm is that most of the losses this year were without his starting quarterback. That was Aaron Torres on the Jeff Brohm situation. That was December 11th, so 2 weeks ago. By the way, must have been a rough night before. Torres was not looking good that morning, but I solely bring it up to very simply say, I told you there would be interest, and I told you this could potentially get down the road. And I want to be fair. all I knew was that there would be interest from Jeff Brohm's side of things. I did not know how interested Michigan would be, and I kind of started working that angle around that time. What I can tell you is he has emerged as a favorite. And by the way, even after I put out that video, also, I did reference this again after Kenny Dillingham agreed to the extension. Matt, you can just pop up my tweet. I said this on Saturday. This was before all the games started. I said, the day Sherrone Moore was fired, I believe Jeff Brohm was the one coach who wouldn't say no to Michigan. He might be at Penn State right now if circumstances were different. With Kenny Dillingham off the board, I believe he moves to the top of the list. All right, so enough patting myself on the back, but I just want out there. I've been telling you for 2 weeks, okay? And what I want to tell you now is what I know and what I think is next, okay? So what I know is a few things. One, I do think, like everything you've heard about Jeff Brohm and Louisville is true. He's obviously from Louisville. He obviously played at Louisville. And I've said it for 2 weeks now. I said when he took the Louisville job, I do believe that he believed it was going to be his last stop. Loves the city, family's there, family's kind of this iconic brand in that city. But I go back to what I said about him and frankly what I said about Kenny Dillingham as well. The sport of college football and basketball too has changed. And what I keep coming back to is this. I think as we get deeper into this NIL era, there's going to be a group of about 8, 10, 12 schools that can just spend way more money than everybody else, okay? And I know what we all thought and what we think and whatever, but there is the rev share cap, which means that schools are able to spend $20.5 million right now on their sports rosters. Basically, you could divvy it up however you want, right? But anyone with a brain realized that once you set this uncapped market where some basketball players are making $2, $3, $4 million this season, where, and this is straight from the school, by the way, where football, the quarterback market now we're hearing is going to be a $3 to $4 million commitment to get one of these elite quarterbacks. I only bring it up because once it became this uncapped wild, wild west, what it has come down to is, do you have those boosters that are willing to write whatever checks it takes to compete at the highest level, right? You go back, and we said this at the time, when Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss for LSU, what did he keep talking about? He kept talking about NIL above the cap. What does that mean? Basically, do you have the resources to spend above the $20.5 million? Because nobody is actually sticking to that $20.5 million number. And so I bring it up. We know who the schools are that are able to do that. Texas Tech, probably A&M, Ohio State, and Michigan is certainly one of them. And so I think with Louisville, I want to defend Jeff Brohm a little bit here. I saw a lot of the essentially the school isn't supporting him. No, I think the school is I'll defend the AD. I think the school is doing everything they can. I just think anybody who knows anything about Louisville, it's a city school, and I'm not trying to I hope this doesn't come off as disrespectful. It's a city school. My understanding is, listen, you can support the team, but to compete at the highest levels of the sport, I just don't know that they have that huge donor base, the huge group of multimillionaires and billionaires that year over year can write checks. To quote Kenny Dillingham, I don't know that there's guys that could just write a $20 million check year over year to help Louisville football. That's not a knock. It's just a reality. And so I think increasingly Jeff Brohm has become more interested in potentially looking for other jobs. I mentioned it in the Saturday tweet. I think there's a world where he could be at Penn State right now. What I do think ended up happening was I think Penn State kind of came at him, I don't know how else to say this, earmuffs if you don't like 4-letter words. 3, 2, 1. I think Penn State kind of came at him half-assed. I think, he was clearly the 4th, 5th choice. They were going after Matt Rule until they weren't. Then there were rumors about this guy. Then there were rumors about that guy. And Jeff Brom's like, dude, you're asking me to leave my hometown, my alma mater, and you're kind of 1 foot in, like, screw this. But what I was also told was Jeff Brohm believed that, hey, at some point in the immediate future, Michigan's going to open up. Now, to be clear, I don't think Jeff Brohm or anybody in his camp knew it was going to be this quickly, but it was kind of understood that if Michigan went 8-4, 9-3 next year, didn't make the playoff, didn't compete for the playoff, didn't beat Ohio State, that Sherrone Moore was probably going to be out. And so I just bring it up because I believe that Jeff Brohm, part of the reason he didn't look at Penn State was he said, I think Michigan's going to open up probably after the 2026 season. And so as far as what's next, all I can say is that I'm not surprised. Listen, I think Louisville smartly is going to do whatever they can to retain him. And then at some point, he's just got to decide, is this a realistic option for, one, first of all, we need to acknowledge, is there a contract on the table? Am I the guy? And then two, on top of it, Louisville's going to do their thing. And I will say, I do think we sort of get a resolution here pretty soon. It's pretty clear that, it has become public knowledge that Michigan is in pursuit of Jeff Brohm. They play their bowl game today. Like I said, I expect him to be non-committal. Now, by the time you listen to this, maybe he's already verbally committed to coming back to Louisville. I don't know. But I only bring it up because, I think he's got a tough decision to make if he truly is the favorite at Michigan. Does he leave his alma mater, the place that he loves? Or does he go to does he stay there? And then even if he stays, is Louisville really in position year over year over year to continue to support the program? So I think it'll be interesting. A couple quick things before we get to the other topics of the day. Luke says, do Louisville fans really care if he's leaving? Seems like they are upset with Jeff Brohm's team sputtering towards the end of the season the past 2 years. Transparently, the biggest listenership we have is in Kentucky. I'll let Louisville and Kentucky fans tell me. I get the sense that there's a lot of people in Louisville that do not want to lose this coach because I will say, again, I can't speak for all Louisville fans, but I think Louisville fans kind of understand if we can't fully support an alum who's from Louisville and wants to be here, what chance do we have going forward? We ain't, if you can't keep that guy, what chance do we have to keep a random dude that's just a good coach? And so I could be wrong. I think Louisville fans are nervous. I think they want to keep him. We'll see what happens. By the way, Smash the Numbers says Kalashi's website, Kalshi, I forget how you say it, but this is the new prediction market model, says Brohm went from 10% chance yesterday to 31%. Bowl game is today. Maybe he does get the offer today. To Smash the Numbers point, they do play. Louisville plays, I believe, a 2 p.m. Eastern bowl game, so we'll see what happens after the game if he addresses it. I should mention, by the way, if for some reason Jeff Brohm does say no, I think we're starting to get to a world where our buddy Biff Poggi, the current interim head coach at Michigan, if Jeff Brohm says no, they might just be out of options. And I think there's a realistic chance that Biff Poggi could replace Sharon Moore, basically, for lack of a better term. So I'll be quick here because I want to get to the Notre Dame USC stuff and some basketball. But I only bring it up because for people who are not following, by the way, Matt, we don't even have a ticker thing for this. We have started a Torres on Michigan Twitter page, Torres on Michigan. If you're a Michigan fan, Torres on MICH, because too many characters, whatever. Follow us if you are a student at Michigan that you want some experience. Help us run a Michigan social media page, Torres on MICH. Okay, so let's talk about Biff for half a second. So Biff is the interim head coach. He was basically Jim Harbaugh's confidant, right-hand man. Son played at Michigan. He went to Charlotte as the head coach for a couple seasons. It did not work. And this past year, he was back at Michigan. If you remember, he was actually the interim head coach. Remember, Sharon Moore was suspended 3 games. He was part of the whole Connor Stallions thing. Sharon Moore was suspended 3 games. Biff was the interim head coach. You could argue Michigan looked better with Biff as the head coach than they did with Sharon Moore. Well, I only bring it up. Thank you, Matt. That was quick work. I appreciate you. Torres on Michigan. We need an intern to help us run it. If you're a Michigan student that wants experience, find us. You can email me, by the way, Aaron Torres, podcastquestions@gmail.com. So Biff, interim head coach, thought it was interesting. So what I am hearing is if Brohm is not interested, I think increasingly there's the possibility that Biff is just named the head coach because you can't have this search going into January. Remember, it's December 23rd right now. It's going to be quiet over Christmas. You get to the 26th, 27th, 28th, you're going to be on your bowl site. And what I can tell you is increasingly the players in the locker room are kind of trying to use the weight and their leverage to get Biff as the full-time head coach, basically remove the interim tag, at least on the short-term basis, okay? So Biff has been around. He was the interim this year. And it was funny. He did a media availability on Monday to preview the bowl game against Texas. One, I thought it was really interesting because he basically said this place has been toxic for 5 years. It needs to be cleaned up. Problem is he was there for 3 of those years. 2 with Harbaugh and 1 with Sharon Moore, or 1 with Sharon Moore, whatever. He was there for 3 of those 5 years that he claims is toxic. But I also bring it up because he did give an impassioned plea when he was asked if he believed that he should be the next head coach. Here is what he had to say.
One reason you think Michigan should hire you?
Because I know what the hell I'm doing. I have a long 10-year history of knowledge of this place. This place is really important to me. My wife and I had one of our boys played here, Henry, and we have 2 daughters that most of you don't know about that graduated from here or are graduating, and this place has been great to them. One's a doctor, one's going to be a doctor, and Henry, talk about the power of Michigan, you all remember Henry, he's now an investment banker. This place is magical, and the program means a lot to me, and you know, it's one of the things I want to fix before I go smoke myself to death with cigars. It's one of the things I want to fix. I want to fix this program.
Biff, why should you be head coach? Quote, because I know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know if I'll ever interview for a job again, but if I ever do, I want to walk in. Aaron, why do you need the job? Because I know what the hell I'm doing. Quoting Biff Poggi circa end of December 2025. So we'll see what happens. I do think, I'm just being transparent, I think the players are pushing really hard for Biff. I see a comment in the chat. You can't bring him, you can't keep him year over year as a quote unquote interim. You got to give him a 3-year deal, whatever. Maybe, but you got to have a very easy opt-out clause. You know, basically you have to have no buyout, essentially, is what I would say. And I think the other thing too, and I'll just be quick on this, Michigan is kind of built for next year, right? You know, Bryce Underwood, 2nd year going into his 3rd year. I think 3 of the 5 starting O-linemen were either true freshmen or redshirt freshmen. Leading receiver, true freshman. Obviously, you don't want to lose guys in the portal, but I think, you know, it could be, you know, you basically acknowledged after Harbaugh left, it was going to be 1 or 2 years to get back on track because you lost, you know, 40 or 50 seniors. Well, now you would have to reset the clock again. Certainly be interesting. Like I said, I'll say it for the last time. Brohm, Louisville play on Tuesday afternoon. I'm sure he will address it. And I would guess by Christmas Day, the 26th at the latest, we know for sure, is he staying at Louisville or is he not staying at Louisville? All right, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, obviously we'll get to any questions or comments in the chat. So I want to talk the USC-Notre Dame thing. By the way, people were texting me about AJ Dybantsa last night, so we got a lot of college basketball to get to. This is the deal. So get to some of your questions. We'll prioritize super chats. I want to talk USC-Notre Dame, but I don't want to talk USC-Notre Dame in the way that you think. We know what happened yesterday. What you might not have heard, USC players, it's not Notre Dame, USC's own players are pissed off, and they are not happy with USC's administration. Lincoln Riley weirdly feeling the heat. We'll take a quick break, come back, talk about that. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So tell you what, first of all, I had no idea Biff Poggi was such a controversial figure. The chat is humming with Biff takes. We'll save the Biff takes. You know, it sounds like something Biff takes. I don't know. It sounds like a side snack that you'd have for Christmas. Anyway, this is what I want to do. I do want to switch gears to the other big college football story of the last few days. We will wrap with a little bit of college basketball because I do think there's some interesting things that have happened over the last couple of days. Let's go ahead and talk about the big story from Monday, though. So Notre Dame and USC. I'm going to use a little bit of a 90s reference here. They're basically the Ross and Rachel of college football. For about 4 or 5 years now, we have heard this thing. So first of all, USC, Notre Dame have played for quite literally, essentially 100 years straight. Every single year they play, they this, they that, they whatever. And I only bring it up because over the last couple of years, it has become increasingly obvious that one side wants out of the relationship. So maybe it's not a perfect Ross and Rachel analogy, but you get the point. Bottom line is they've been playing for 100 years outside of the COVID year and outside of World War II. They have played every single year, okay? But over the last couple of years, it has become increasingly obvious that, frankly, that USC kind of wants out of this partnership, okay? And so, first of all, it goes back to really about 18 or so months ago. I actually found the original quote. So this rivalry kind of, you could tell there was starting to become some friction. This was the 2024 Big Ten Media Day. So not this past summer, but 2 summers ago. Lincoln Riley was asked about the Notre Dame football rivalry and what is the future. Remember that year, LSU and USC were opening the season. There were reports that USC tried to cancel the game. I believe USC and Ole Miss were on the schedule. Lincoln Riley and USC canceled that game. But dating back to July of 2024, this is what Lincoln Riley had to say about the partnership, about the relationship, about the rivalry. He said there have been a lot of teams that have to sacrifice rivalry games. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but as we get into this playoff structure, and if it changes or not, we get into a new conference. We're going to learn some about this as we go and what the right and best track is for winning a championship. He continued, Alabama didn't schedule for their fans. They scheduled to win national championships. My hope is we can do the best thing, schedule to win championships. And if that includes a rivalry game, then for all that comes with that and blah, 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 whatever. Bottom line, Lincoln Riley has been hinting at this for 2 years now, okay? And I'll try to be quick because I want to get this sound in. It is so good. You're going to love it. But basically, it has really ramped up really the last year or so. And essentially, I'll defend USC a little bit. I sort of understand where they're coming from. Basically, their big argument over the last year, those were Lincoln Riley's original quotes. Since then, though, what has become interesting is that USC is now deeper into this Big Ten thing. And I sort of understand where USC is coming from. They've basically, up until Monday, their stance has been, look, we will play you, but it has to be in the traditional non-conference window, basically like week 1, week 2, week 3. Like that's when the game has to be. And for people who don't know the calendar aspects of it, Notre Dame and USC, when they play at Notre Dame, is usually middle of October. And when Notre Dame plays at USC, it is traditionally the last game of the regular season. And so I'll try to be quick, but why this is important is for 2 reasons. Basically, USC has said, like, look, we will play you, but we want it to be early. And their argument is essentially that basically like we have to make 3 or 4 cross-country trips every single year as part of this new Big Ten deal. We got to go to Minnesota, and then we got to come back, and then we got to go to Iowa, then we got to come back, then we got to go to Rutgers, then we got to come back, we got to go to Nebraska, then we got to, and they're basically just like, we don't need another cross-country trip in the middle of the season. And so that has been their stance. The argument was always, if we move up the game, we're willing to play it. But over the last couple weeks, things have changed. Now, a little bit of context here because I didn't include it in my notes for Matt here. But, this story came out about Notre Dame. I guess there's a clause in the playoff structure of if they're ranked in the top 12, basically they get an automatic spot in the college football playoff. Okay. And it's the weird thing, whatever. But I only bring it up because now USC has decided not only are they canceling the series, but the argument is that Notre Dame will not be punished for a loss in November, and we might be. And so I want to get into it. First of all, Matt, you could pop my tweet, which has the Ross Dellinger quote, because this is the important part. And this is the part I will defend Notre Dame on. I haven't defended Notre Dame much over the last couple weeks, but USC set the standard. We want to play early. We can play November next year, but we're going to go early going forward. So I bring it up because this is what Ross Dellinger reported on Monday. He said the latest rounds of discussions amongst administrators at each school fizzled over the last 2 weeks, a stunning about face. In fact, the two programs were on the verge of finalizing a 2-year extension of their agreement in late November. So we're talking about less than a month ago, with USC agreeing to host Notre Dame next year on the traditional date after Thanksgiving and the Irish hosting in 2027. This is the money quote right here. However, USC officials determined the game date was not ideal considering past decisions from the CFB selection committee in punishing schools for losses, especially those late in the season. All right. So I want to be abundantly clear here, and I want to explain something loud and clear. I understand that people don't like Notre Dame. I understand that they need to join a conference and all that, and that's what you're going to yell and scream about. Here is the bottom line. I want you to understand what happened with this rivalry. USC set the terms. Notre Dame agreed to those terms. And then USC pulled the rug anyway. This is not a Notre Dame and USC are 50-50 to blame. USC set the terms, Notre Dame agreed to them, and then USC changed its mind at the last minute, and there is no other thing to say other than that USC looks insanely soft because, as Ross Dellinger said, they are quite literally afraid to take a loss in November. Their argument is losses late in the season are punished more than losses early in the season. We can't risk it. Well, here's an idea. How about you just beat your biggest rival and then it's not an issue? And so that is what happened on Monday. And let me also say this. It's not just Notre Dame people who are upset. So I live in LA, okay? And I will tell you, like, this game matters to USC fans. So I think there's kind of the new school USC fans that understand it's a new world. We're in the Big Ten now. The world is changing, whatever. I actually think that's a very small minority. Okay, let me say this. Colin Cowherd, good friend of mine. Love Colin. He's been great to me. I owe a lot to him. I'm basically at Fox Sports Radio because of him, okay? He has been in this USC doesn't need Notre Dame thing. And I think what I would say is I think because Colin has such a big voice, I think people think he speaks for the whole fan base. I think it's actually a very small portion of the fan base that is totally okay with this rivalry being gone. And I think the vast majority of the fan base wants this rivalry there. And it's not just fans. What I was surprised by on Monday, the number of former USC players who openly spoke out about how angry they were that this rivalry was canceled. The big difference. Canceled, not cancered. That's not even a word, thank goodness, but I'm talking about canceled. Matt, pop up the Sua Cravens tweet first. Okay, so Sua Cravens, USC legend, played in the NFL for about 8-9 years. He still does media here in LA. He said, shaking my head. Need to figure this out ASAP. Call me a purist all you want. I want to play Notre Dame every damn year. Fight on. That was one. There were other tweets, but I don't think anyone was as vocal about this rivalry being gone as Keyshawn Johnson. He's been in the media. I don't know if he's doing any media stuff now, but he was at ESPN. He was at FS1. He is a USC alum, a USC legend. One of my earliest experiences watching college football was Keyshawn Johnson in the Rose Bowl for USC before he became the number 1 overall pick. We got to listen to what Keyshawn Johnson has to say about this rivalry.
Man, you know what? I've heard it all. I've seen it all. I can't believe what I just heard. But I just heard that we're not playing Notre Dame. I think the series is getting ready to end like in the next year or so. Here's what I'm going to say, man. I don't know what the F is going on with our athletic department. Okay, we got people in there that are not Trojans, that don't know anything about being a Trojan, running our athletic department. We got a head coach that knows nothing about being a Trojan. Why don't we just not play football? How about that? We're not going to play Notre Dame again, possibly till 2030 is what I'm understanding. That doesn't make any sense. I grew up on the Notre Dame USC rivalry, and I'm not one to go in on my athletic department, nor am I one to go in on the USC football coach. But if I can remember correctly, I had Lincoln Riley talking about, well, I don't know if I want to play them in the future. You ain't going to be here in the future, especially if you keep missing the playoffs. You're not going to be here in the future. I promise you that. So I don't understand what our athletic department or administration, okay, or board of trustees, board of regents, whatever you want to call it. What the hell are they doing? We running from teams now? We running from Notre Dame? Hell, why don't we run from Oregon and Michigan and Ohio State and Wisconsin? Why don't we just not be in the conference? Why don't we pull that move and just play Sacramento State? Why don't we play them type of teams? UC Davis? Because that's what we want to do. This is crazy. It really is crazy if you think about it. Michigan, Ohio State, one of the biggest rivalries in football. Alabama, Auburn. Okay? They ain't canceling that. Why would we cancel our biggest rivalry because we can't beat them? It's ridiculous. It makes zero sense, man. It's just hard to support this program. It's hard. It's really hard to support this program when we keep on doing this type of stuff, this behavior. I can't, man. We need Trojans doing Trojan things. We don't need imposters coming in trying to do Trojan things. I'm going to leave it at that.
Holy crap. Okay. I'll say this is that, I think that sometimes people in the media are afraid to call out other people. That is about as vicious as I can remember. You're not a Trojan. You'll never be a Trojan. And you're not going to be here very long. You won't be here in 2030 if you don't start making the college football playoff. Okay. And so I wanted to play that sound because, listen, do I have an opinion? Yes. Is it sad the rivalry's gone? Yes. But I can't speak for Notre Dame fans and I can't speak for USC fans. And I think what kind of the national, big boy, mainstream media wants to tell you, it's all Notre Dame's fault. USC doesn't care. They're in the Big Ten. No. I think Keyshawn Johnson spoke for a lot of people with that rant. I'll take it a step further, okay? I think that very clearly, and I think that this decision is part of the friction between Lincoln Riley and USC, and to a degree, by the way, Jen Cohen, the AD, and USC. Again, I'm just going to say, and I love Colin Cowherd. I really do. I think a lot of people think that he speaks for a lot of Trojan fans. I'm just telling you, as somebody who lives in LA, I don't believe that he does, okay? But what Keyshawn said was so important, is that these people aren't Trojans. They'll never be Trojans, and they're not going to be around here. They better start making some moves if they want to be around here for a while. And so I bring it up because, to me, it is so important to contextualize that, and I think it speaks to the larger issue of, the friction between Lincoln Riley and the USC fan base, I do think is palpable. Okay. And we always thought I said, I'll be one of many that thought it was going to work. It was going to be a home run. Now, admittedly, when Lincoln Riley took the USC job, we thought he was going to be in the Pac-12, and that changed within a calendar year or whatever. But two, I thought it was going to work. But I think increasingly what we're realizing, it really is a square peg in a round hole situation. And then to take it a step further, I think this is the part that stands out to me. Lincoln Riley does not have a lot of allies at this job, okay? He's kind of a weird guy. He's kind of really prickly. He's kind of rude with the media. And listen, I don't care. It doesn't bother me if you're rude with the media. But when you're rude with the media, when you're, I'll tell you like a little inside baseball, he has no real relationships with the high school coaches here and whatever you think about SoCal. SoCal does produce a lot of players. Maybe most of them aren't, defensive and offensive linemen like they are in wherever. But SoCal does produce a lot of players. The best programs in high school football, Mater Dei and Don Bosco Prep. I mean, we're talking about two of the best programs in high school football are within an hour's drive of USC's program. He has no relationships. And so I only bring it up because that from Keyshawn Johnson says to me, no relationships, no goodwill built. Bro, you better start winning right away because everything that USC has stood for 100 years, you are tearing down without the equity with the fan base or without the wins that are allowing you to keep the. So like, I don't even know the point I'm trying to make. I guess the point I'm trying to make is this. The friction between Lincoln Riley and USC is real. By the way, shout out to all the people who call Lincoln Riley soft when he left Oklahoma. I tried to defend it at the time, but it is very obvious that he is soft, that he is afraid of competition, that he wants nothing to do with facing the best teams, and he wants the easiest path possible. Now, I understand, by the way, the Big Ten is a different world. And whatever we think about the Big Ten, you look at USC's schedule next year, it's bananas. I think they play Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, and Michigan. Indiana, and maybe it's Penn State. No, it's Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana. Okay. So I get it. I get that the league is tougher. But you're US freaking C, man. I mean, whatever. We know the most draft picks, most Heismans, most whatever. And you are now running from your biggest rival. It's a bad look. We can debate, what it means for college football. But this is one, man. Like Notre Dame has taken a lot of heat over the last month or so. And I think justifiably for how they handled the college football playoff situation. But like I said, they are... can't call them blameless in this situation. What you can say is, this one's on USC. And I'm just telling you, Lincoln Riley better start winning big or he's going to lose this fan base for good. All right, so what I'm going to do, take a quick break, come back. When we come back, do want to talk a little bit of hoops. Let's see here, by the way, if there's any good there's a lot of good comments in the chat. So we'll come back, get to some of your comments in the chat because there's a lot of good stuff here. Do want to switch gears to some college hoops, some interesting stuff that happened over the course of the last 24 or so hours. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Collie Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Collie Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Collie Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to ColliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, ColliePuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase, one bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. ColliePuffs.com gets you 15% off. Collie Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but ColliePuffs.com, ColliePuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Collie Puffs. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So I do want to get to some of your questions and comments on Lincoln Riley, USC. It does feel like people are really fired up about this topic. So we'll get to that in a second. Before we do, though, you know what I got to do? I got to thank our friends. I got to thank the official ticketing partner of the Aaron Torres Pod. I got to thank SeatGeek at SeatGeek.com. Okay, so SeatGeek is America's #1 ticketing app. I love SeatGeek, okay? And why I love SeatGeek, first of all, as I said, America's #1 ticketing app, 28 million downloads. I always say it, I feel like Dr. Ego, 28 million downloads. 28 million downloads. But what I love about SeatGeek is two things. One, every ticket on that app, you know before you purchase if it's the right one for you. Green dot means go ahead and purchase. Red dot means stay away. And every ticket is rated 1 through 10. By the way, I got just a crazy itch on my face here. Every ticket rated 1 through 10, green dot or red dot. But you know why I really love SeatGeek? I'm going to tell you. It's because they take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres Pod. So all you got to do, if you go to SeatGeek.com, use promo code Torres. It's promo code TORRES. Gets you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com. Promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. Should mention, as always, it's not just sporting events. Now, you can use it for a sporting event. College football, basketball, bowl game, college football playoff. If you're an Indiana fan, you're going to the Rose Bowl for the first time ever, $20 off, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. But you can also use it for concerts, shows. If SeatGeek has a ticket to what you want to go to on their app, you can use code Torres to get $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. All right, really quickly before we get to some hoops, I do want to just get to the chat because goodness, is there a lot on this USC situation. Let's see here. Let's take a look. There was a couple that I saw. Lawrence says, thank you, Keyshawn. Listen, I thought that was some of the best. We play sound on this show almost every day. I thought that was some of the best sound we have ever played on this show because you can hear the passion and you can hear the frustration and you can hear the anger in his voice. So shout out to Keyshawn talking about Colin Cowherd. Xander Cruz says Colin didn't even go to USC. He just lived in LA for a decade. Listen, I know Colin's background. Not trying to. I had dinner with him like 6 months ago. He's a great guy. He's actually a very nice guy. I would tell him, and I've said this to him personally. I just disagree with his Notre Dame USC take. And what I would say is like, listen, I understand the USC side of things of, hey, we can't be traveling across country in October. But when you agree to terms and then back out in the last couple minutes, last couple days, that's really weak stuff. We didn't even mention, by the way, BYU has replaced USC on the schedule. And so I only bring it up because that means that in some ways, and I thought a lot of people brought this up, it was kind of interesting, is that you can argue BYU is actually a tougher opponent right now in this world for Notre Dame. So Notre Dame and BYU have agreed to a 2-year home and home starting next year in Provo. Speaking of BYU, let's switch gears to some hoops. And I really want to focus on two quick things. But I would be remiss if I didn't spend half a second. So college hoops is going to get quiet over the next couple of days. But I just want to spend half a second shouting out. There are two big picture topics I want to take. I'd be remiss if I did not spend half a second talking about A.J. Dybantsa. Okay, so A.J. Dybantsa, listen, we know the reputation coming in, #1 high school player in America, you know, all the reports about NIL and this and that. All I can tell you is this. While Darren Peterson, I'm not criticizing him. We're going to talk Darren Peterson in a second. While Darren Peterson is hurt, A.J. Dybantsa, every single game is doing just preposterous stuff. Okay, so the last time we really talked about AJ was after the Clemson game at the Jimmy V Classic, whatever it was, 21 second half points or whatever. On Monday night, BYU played its final game of the out-of-conference slate. It's their final game before Big 12 play starts right around January 1st. And A.J. Dybantsa just got his first career triple-double. I know people say it was only Eastern Washington. 33 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists for A.J. in that game, his first triple-double. Keep in mind, this is a guy, by the way, I've seen all sorts of crazy stats about A.J. I think he's he's the youngest player in college basketball history with a 30-point triple-double. But I just had somebody send me some stats that I want to read to you, okay? So first of all, last 4 games, this is what AJ has done the last 4 games. 29 points, 8.5 rebounds, 5.8 assists, and over a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. 3 steals a game, 66% shooting from 3, 75% free throws, 27% from 3. And so now I know what everyone's going to say, oh, they played Eastern Washington. They played UC Riverside. Shout out UC Riverside, Gus Arsenault, my guy there. He's going to do big things. But I bring it up because he's playing against nobody. Okay, well, how about the Power 5? This is what AJ's done. 22 points a game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists per game, 48% shooting, 45% from 3, 76, almost 77% from the free throw line, excuse me. All I will say is this. Listen, I've covered high school and college hoops forever. And we talk about this all the time. There are some years where, a kid's ranked 1st or 3rd or 7th, and you kind of know in the back, like, kid's good, but like it's going to take him a minute to figure out college basketball. AJ Dybantsa, and I think this is a metaphor for this entire freshman class. This class is so unbelievable every single night. Cam Boozer, Mikael Brown Jr., who I know is hurt, Darren Peterson, who I know is hurt, Caleb Wilson, who we're going to talk about in a minute. It's just every night it's unbelievable. But what I will give AJ credit for is this. 1, just absolutely preposterous numbers. But 2, he's doing it within the context of the team. Again, 3 assists per game in those power conference games. But then I want to make sure I have the stat right again. By the way, my apps on my phone are so annoying. 6 assists per game in his last 4 games. And that's what's really stood out to me is I think, I have seen in my time doing this, there's a lot of these guys that come in and there's a lot of these guys that, like it's just, they want to, make it about themselves or they want to prove that they're this. AJ's doing it within the flow of the offense. And I'll tell you what, BYU, they are very much in the mix. You start talking about the Big 12. Big 12, listen, they're the best league in college basketball. I know people are going to say the Big 10. Give me that top 4 of Houston, which just smacked Arkansas, Iowa State, which won at Purdue, Arizona, which is undefeated and number 1 team in the country, BYU right now finishing out of conference play at 12-1. The only loss in Boston to UConn, which was obviously a pro UConn crowd. I'd be remiss if I did not shout out AJ Dybantsa, 33, 10, and 10. First triple-double for BYU in essentially a decade. And I could be wrong. I believe he's the youngest player ever with a 30-point triple-double in college basketball history. Let's switch gears. Somebody who hasn't had very many triple-doubles of late, Darren Peterson and the Kansas Jayhawks. Okay, so it's this weird thing. I want to wrap, but as we get into the holidays, we're going to start turning more and more to college basketball. And this Darren Peterson situation is so wild at Kansas. Okay, I think if you've listened to a show like this, you know the backstory on Darren Peterson, but this freshman class, which I just referenced, is absolutely unbelievable. Darren Peterson was supposed to be the headliner of this whole class, right? He is this 6'6" point guard, this new age guy. And I'll be transparent. I know enough people in the grassroots circuit where for years, the 2025 class was crazy because first it was Cooper Flagg versus Cam Boozer. Then Cooper Flagg reclassified, and it was Cam Boozer versus AJ Dybantsa after AJ Dybantsa reclassified. And then by the end of last year, it was kind of this sort of consensus that Darren Peterson may have passed everybody. Well, I bring it up. He comes to Kansas with all this hype. That Louisville exhibition, never forget, they played Louisville in an exhibition game to open the preseason. Triple-double, or not triple-double, but I think he had like 22, 7, and 7. And ever since then, just there's something not quite right with Darren Peterson. Well, much like BYU, Kansas finished the out-of-conference portion of its slate on Monday night. They hosted Davidson, and for the second straight game, Darren Peterson was not available following the NC State game where he played, but then went out with an injury, went out with I believe it was cramps, if I remember correctly. And overall, Kansas, like I said, they have now played 12 games overall. They are through the out-of-conference portion of their slate. They've played 13 games, excuse me. I think I said 10. They've played 12. They've played 13. They're 10-3. Darren Peterson has played a grand total of 4 games so far. And so in the Kansas community, there's been this conversation about what's really going on here. Is he being held out? Does Bill Self know about it? Is he going to basically opt out of this season and not play for Kansas anymore? Well, I bring it up because after missing a second straight game, after again missing a bunch of games in November, Bill Self was asked about Darren Peterson after the game on Monday. Remember, they go into about a 10-day break now before they open Big 12 play. Bill Self with a not-so-great update on Darren Peterson.
Status of Darren entering break?
Same as it was yesterday or this morning. I think he's doing well. You know, that they're going to make a decision. You know, that they, you know, they've made a decision, which I don't disagree with it at all, that they want him to be, you know, as close to 100% as possible when he comes back, and he's just not quite there yet. But it's a day-to-day deal. He will be. So I wish he could have played tonight, but fact of the matter, other guys got some run and they did well. So hopefully, you know, we'll give some other guys some opportunities. Will hopefully make us, you know, deeper as we get into conference play.
Yeah, just to clarify, who'd you mean by they when you said they made the decision about Darren?
Oh, his family.
Okay.
Yeah, his family. You know, the thing about it is, we talked about this. We're in agreement with the family that he should not play until he feels good. We're in agreement. But I'm not. I mean, I'm not inside his head or his body that I can determine if he feels good enough or not. That's up to him. But he wants to be out there. He's just not quite ready.
So that was Bill Self after Kansas's win over Davidson on Monday night, and basically giving the update that he has essentially given every single press conference since like early November. In some ways, I feel bad because you can tell he's frustrated about being asked about this. Essentially, he said, he's like, I'm telling you the same thing I told you this morning. We'll figure it out on a day-to-day basis. But what became interesting on Monday night, Kansas fans, and I'm not Kansas fans, I hope you know, I'm not criticizing in any way, shape, or form. I'm just stating it as a fact. They took the quote from Bill Self. It's up to them. It's up to the family. They took it as a negative, and they took it as the family is actively trying to hold him out of these games. So here's my personal opinion on Darren Peterson, okay? I do believe there are two things that can be true, and I don't actually think either of them is actually kind of the common refrain, right? I think the easy thing is you listen to a clip on social media, the family's trying to keep him out, they're trying to protect his draft stock, whatever. This is what I will tell you. I do not believe that Darren Peterson is actively trying to avoid playing to protect his draft stock or protect his this or protect his that or whatever. But what I do believe, it's now December 23rd. Kansas has played more than a third of its regular season games. And I do think, fair or not, I think it's fair to question, do we ever see a fully healthy Darren Peterson in a Kansas Jayhawks uniform? And so as far as the first part is concerned, let me say this, okay? I don't believe that the family is actively trying to hold him out. The bottom line is, in my opinion, I'll just be honest. One, it just doesn't make sense to me, okay? First of all, if he was going to be like a number 1, number 2, number 3 pick, no matter what happened, probably at Kansas going into the year. So if this was about we don't want him to play, you're going to send him to Kansas in May. You're going to have him practice 8 weeks where, listen, I don't think people should be afraid to practice, but you never know what's going to happen. Then you're going to let him play during the exhibition slate. You're going to allow him to play. But once the season starts, when the hype is starting to ramp up, that is when you are going to decide to hold him out. Doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. But here's the other reason that this makes no sense at all to me in any way, shape, or form. This is the year where if you, like, let me put it this way. You can fall really quick in this draft, okay? Because the one thing about this draft class, The draft class is insane. The freshman class, we've talked about AJ Dybantsa, Caleb Wilson, not Caleb Williams, who had a nice touchdown pass the other day. Caleb Wilson, Mikael Brown Jr. But here's the other thing. Look at some of the older players. Yaxel Lendenberg is going to be a top 10 pick. LeBaron Philon's really good at improving by the day. And so to me, it doesn't make sense because you could legitimately fall in this draft, right? Let's go back for half a second to the Zion Williamson situation at Duke. Zion, if you remember the whole opt-out of the season situation, it was in like early to mid-February. It was actually, of all people, Scottie Pippen, who was the one that was like, he was on some ESPN show. He was doing like Inside the NBA or whatever their midday show is at the time. He's like, oh, he should shut it down. And it became a big national talking point. But it became a big national talking point because Zion Williamson was clearly the number one pick in the draft. It only applied to him because it was like Zion doesn't have to play another game and he's going to be the number one pick in the draft. That is not the case with Darren Peterson. First of all, I think AJ Dybantsa has surpassed him as the best, not only the best freshman in college basketball, but I would take him with the number one pick because I'm seeing AJ every single night do it against elite competition. But it's not just AJ. Caleb Wilson is putting up historic numbers at UNC. We're going to get to them in a second. Cam Boozer would actually be my national player of the year at this moment in time. Again, Yaxel's doing incredible things. Mikael Brown Jr., when he's healthy, is doing incredible things. Nate Amen is putting up good stats. Chris Sinak Jr., Darius Acuff. You can tell me Darius Acuff isn't playing like a top 5 pick right now? So all of a sudden, if Darren Peterson is not playing, we don't think healthy, and also on top of that, no one really knows what's going on with the injury, he could fall in the draft pretty quick. And as anybody knows, the difference between the first pick and the 5th pick, the first pick and the 7th pick, the second pick and the 6th pick, it's millions of dollars, and in some cases, tens of millions of dollars. And I think he's risking it by not playing. So I don't believe that he's actively not playing for the sake of not playing. What I do think is fair to say, though, we talked about this a little bit after the NC State game. I think it's fair to question if we ever see the best version of Darren Peterson at Kansas, because what I keep going back to is this. If you remember, Kansas plays NC State. Now, technically, Darren Peterson came back the game before against Missouri, okay? But I bring it up because what was the big conversation at that point when Darren Peterson was playing against NC State and playing against Missouri? The big conversation was like they held like basically, let me put it this way. It was basically Kansas plays that North Carolina game. Darren Peterson kind of goes out with cramps. Then we're told it's a hamstring injury. Doesn't play against Duke. Then they go to the Players Era tournament. And the whole thing was, is he going to play in the Players Era tournament? He doesn't play in the Players Era tournament. And then the conversation, when is he going to come back? When is he going to come back? When is he going to come back? And so why I believe that there is a real possibility that we never see the best version of him, Kansas literally held him out until he basically felt like 100%. And then immediately he goes into the Missouri and NC State game and hurts himself again. And so I guess my question is pretty straightforward. If you were basically out a month going into that Missouri game a few weeks ago, and you were as healthy as you were going to be, and you immediately got re-injured, it started to make me wonder, like, are you just injury prone, or is there some sort of issue that you cannot overcome? Because listen, one thing with hamstrings, and we're assuming it's a hamstring, it is a lingering injury. And so I defended Darren Peterson. I defended Kansas when he got hurt. I said, hamstrings are weird because sometimes you can come back too early from a hamstring injury and the rest of your body is not built up. And that's when you twist an ankle. That's when you pull a calf muscle. That's when, God forbid, something even worse than that happens. And so it was like kind of like the same thing with Jaden Quaintance, right? I remember saying this about Jaden Quaintance when we were talking about him coming back for Kentucky. I said, the problem with it's not just the knee. The knee may be 100%, but what about the calf? What about the hamstring? What about the quad? Like it's the same thing. And so it's the same thing with Darren Peterson. I said, you don't want to rush him back because you need to make sure he's healthy for the back half of the year. But if you held him out for basically a month and he immediately gets hurt again, it leads me to believe, what makes you think that he is going to be healthy when he comes back a second time, whenever he comes back. And so I don't know what it is. Bill Self, in that media availability, said it was cramping. It's previously been a hamstring. There's something going on, and it's weird. But I will say this just kind of feels like the thing. For the last time, I know I've just said it twice, so I'll cut myself off here. If you got held out for a month and you're still hurt, then that makes me worry that if they hold you out for another month, what makes me think you're going to get back, especially, by the way, you're now going into Big 12 play. You're going to be playing twice a week, every week, against really high leverage competition. We already talked about how good the league is. Arizona, number 1 in the country. Iowa State undefeated, 1 at Purdue. BYU, 12-1. It's just, I would be worried if I was a Kansas fan. And maybe Kansas fans are over it at this point and they don't want anything to do with the kid. I want to see him on the court. I want to see him playing healthy. I don't believe he's actively trying to avoid playing. But man, oh man, this is frustrating. And even just as a college basketball fan, I just want to see him on the court. And I've said it since the Duke game. I actually really like the pieces that Bill Self put around Darren Peterson. But you got to have Darren Peterson to play at the highest level. And I'm starting to worry that it just might not happen for the Kansas Jayhawks. Really quickly, do want to wrap on one more college basketball story. So let's go ahead and switch gears. Like I said, one more college basketball story to wrap the show. And so here's the deal. It's our last show before Christmas, okay? And it is better around Christmas time to give than to receive. And then also, here's the other thing. It's okay to make penance for your sins or for your misgivings in the previous year, right? I go back to Home Alone 2, one of the great cinematic classics of all time, right? What does the pigeon lady say to Kevin? Well, you can make up for a lot of mistakes during the year if you do good deeds on Christmas Eve. Well, we're one day away from Christmas Eve. So I'm going to do a good deed, and I am going to basically admit that I was wrong and that I owe an apology to a certain man. He's not on the screen right now. That is Caleb Wilson, who is maybe my favorite player to watch in college basketball. But instead, I want to say a quick apology to Hubert Davis. Okay, Matt, you could keep Caleb Wilson on the screen. It's fine. I should have told you I was going to go more Hubert here. But here's the bottom line. If you listen to this show, especially during basketball season, you know that I have been very critical of the North Carolina Tar Heels and the North Carolina Tar Heels basketball program. And the reason why is pretty straightforward. I hold North Carolina to a very high standard, okay? When I grew up, top 5 team every year, national championship contender every year, Antoine Jameson, Vince Carter, Jerry Stackhouse, Rasheed Wallace, shout out Joe Forte, who didn't have a great NBA career, but was a great college player. I mean, Carolina was the blue blood of all blue bloods, okay? And so Hubert Davis comes in, and you can't sit here and say he's been bad. We know he won the ACC one year. We know in a separate year, he went to the NCAA championship game where they lost to Kansas, ironically. But also, I just don't think that he has necessarily previously lived up to the North Carolina standard. And so last season, we kind of know how it went. Probably shouldn't have made the tournament. They get in, they win the play-in game, they lose to Ole Miss. But I got to call a spade here. At least through the early part of the 2025-2026 season, I have been wrong on the North Carolina Tar Heels. Okay, so North Carolina, like Kansas, like BYU, finished up its out-of-conference slate on Monday night. And in that game, North Carolina took care of business against East Carolina. Final score in that one was 99-51. And we are not going to sit here and break down North Carolina and East Carolina. But as they head into the Christmas break, North Carolina is now 12-1. Their only loss was to a very good Michigan State team on Thanksgiving Day. And again, this is my Christmas penance. North Carolina fans, I owe y'all an apology. And Hubert Davis, I very specifically owe you an apology, as North Carolina is sitting at 12-1. Really quickly, and by the way, when I say they're sitting at 12-1, I think they're, by the way, very much better than I was expecting. And then two, I think them and Duke are, listen, I love Louisville. I love Pat Kelsey. I love the Reviveville. But you look at their front court woes, I worry a little bit about them. NC State obviously isn't what anyone, including Will Wade, was expecting. So I think North Carolina is a real player in the ACC, okay? And so first of all, 2 things come to mind is why has North Carolina flipped the switch? The first one, that dude on the screen right there, as the kids say, he's a freaking problem, okay? And so Caleb Wilson, I go back to the high school stuff with Caleb Wilson. We must have done about 10 updates on him during his high school career. It was down in North Carolina, Kentucky, North Carolina, Kentucky, North Carolina, Kentucky. He commits to Carolina. But when he committed to Carolina, I felt like, okay, he's going to be a really good freshman, impact player, but like how good is he going to be really? We just talked about it with Dybantsa and Peterson. It's like some of these guys are really highly ranked, but then they come to college and it doesn't click right away. Yeah, it has clicked right away for Caleb Wilson. I said this after the Kansas win a few weeks ago. He's maybe my favorite player to watch in college basketball because here's the thing about Caleb Wilson. All these kids now, they all have the, I'm a dog, I'm different, I'm built different, and most of them aren't. Caleb Wilson is a dog that is built different and is different. 21-15 against Ohio State the other night. And then, of course, oh, by the way, on Monday night, in that win over East Carolina, Caleb Wilson, how about this? 21 points, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks, and 3 steals. He is unfreaking believable. As a matter of fact, he's not just good. Statistically, he is going to go down as one of the best, if not the best, North Carolina freshmen ever. Now, I know North Carolina, guy named Michael Jordan hit a game-winning shot in the national championship game. So I'm not saying Caleb Wilson is going to be better than Michael Jordan. But what I am saying is what he is doing is quite literally unprecedented, okay? So, Matt, you can pop up the stat from Monday night. With Caleb Wilson, with that 21-point, 12-rebound game, he is only the second North Carolina freshman joining Phil Ford to ever score 20-plus points in 5 straight games. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable season for him. And listen, he is the biggest X factor, okay? But beyond that, I was thinking about this. I said there were 2 things from the summer that Carolina fans kept telling me about this team. One, they said Caleb Wilson is better than you're giving him credit for, Torres. Yeah, you guys were right about that. But then on top of that, the other thing that I remember everyone kept saying to me, they kept saying like, Torres, wait, because I was very critical of the roster construction. You lose Ian Jackson to the portal. Drake Powell declares, which was still kind of weird to me. Elliot Cadeau transfers. And I said, like, who do they have? And what everyone kept saying to me was, Torres, be patient. Torres, wait until the roster comes together and you'll see what the vision is. Well, the roster didn't really come together until mid-May. If I remember correctly, Luka Bogovic committed like May 6th, 7th, 8th, something like that. But it came together, and you can now see what Hubert Davis was trying to do. Follow that Duke blueprint of positional size. It creates defensive problems. And I even go back to last year with the Duke Carolina games was there were just games where you could just see like athletically, they're just nowhere near as close to Duke, right? Elliot Cadeau, RJ Davis, good players, but whatever. I only bring it up because fast forward to this season, that positional size has impacted them. And what stands out to me specifically, that front court is monstrous, okay? And listen, I'm not going to do are they the best front court in college basketball? There's a lot of good ones. What I will say, they are statistically, I would argue, I would argue the most skilled front court in all of college basketball, okay? So you look at this team. I love Caleb Wilson. No, I also love who I have always loved dating back to his days at Arizona, Henry Visar, okay? So Henry Visar was a guy like, he just kind of went in the portal and he was out of the portal in like a day. And it happened during Final Four weekend. I remember being at the Final Four when he committed. So we never got time to talk about it. But Henry Visar, as you can see on the ticker, 17 points, 9 rebounds, 1.5 blocks per game, shooting 50% from 3. And here's the other thing. It's not like he's not taking threes. 34 3-point attempts in 13 games. That's 2.5 3 a game. And so I just bring it up because you look at his skill. You look at Caleb Wilson. You look at Jaren Stevenson. And you look at how they all play together. It's just beautiful. Like I was watching the East Tennessee game the other night. Was it East Tennessee? I want to make sure I have that right. I think it was East Tennessee. And I tweeted about it. And, whenever a good team beats a bad team, people are like, oh, why are you even giving credit? They're supposed to be. It's like, but if you can't watch and see the impact that these guys are having, I don't know what else there is to tell you. And so I just bring it up because I like this team. I give them credit. The other thing that's worth noting, Seth Trimble has basically played the whole season. Their best guard on the roster has played 4 games. He had that weird weight room injury. He just came back over the last 2 games, and he's getting into it. 17 against Ohio State, 12 on Monday night against East Carolina. But I think this team's best basketball is ahead, okay? And I don't know if this will be controversial to say during a North Carolina clip. I do think Duke should be considered the favorite in the ACC. I know that Duke just lost to Texas Tech, so maybe people are smelling a little bit of blood in the water. But I think North Carolina is right there. I think North Carolina is a team that is absolutely good enough to win the ACC. You win the ACC, we're talking about a top 2, top 3 seed. And I think you do that. We were talking about North Carolina as a team that could be in Indianapolis. And this was a team, when the roster came together, I don't know that I saw it. So Hubert Davis, my man, I owe you an apology. Merry Christmas. Torres was dead. You know what? Wrong. And I'll just say I've really enjoyed watching this team. That was the last little basketball note before we head into the holidays. Really quickly, do want to just get to some last second chat conversations. First of all, Eddie, big UK fan. Jaden Quaintance will be in the conversation after a few more games. He's obviously referencing those top 5, top 10 draft picks. Jaden Quaintance was unbelievable. By the way, Kentucky plays a mid-afternoon game today. Yeah, I'll be watching. By the way, Smash the Numbers, apparently a Michigan fan. Did Michigan give all their bad juju to football so their basketball team could be without a weakness? Barring injury, they will be 20-0 heading into East Lansing versus Michigan State. I haven't looked ahead at the schedule, but I will tell you really quickly, we haven't talked much about Michigan because their games have been such blowouts in basketball. I think they are the best team in college basketball. I can't say it's not even close, but what I will say is you look at the schedule, McNeese, USC, at Penn State, Wisconsin, at Washington, at Oregon. I think that's a tough road trip to get both fly across country. That's in the middle of January. I think Michigan's the best team that I've seen. Arizona should be number 1 based on the resume. I know my UConn people are going to be mad. Torres, give us credit, blah, 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 blah. I'm not giving anybody credit. I'm just saying Michigan's the best team that I have seen. And then Smash the Numbers also says Michigan. This is the crazy part about Michigan. 6 different players averaging double figures between 10 and 16 points a game. So balanced. How is that even possible in a 40-minute college basketball game? It's a great point. I remember when they had that streak of 30-point wins. It was the 3 players era game, San Diego State, Auburn, and then Gonzaga, and then they beat Villanova. And I went back and looked, and I think in the previous 6 games, they had 5 different players who led them in scoring. Best team I've seen. And I'll tell you this, I know some people kind of around that Michigan basketball program. They know how good they are. I always say this, a lot of times coaches are hesitant to get too excited about their teams. No, Michigan knows that they got themselves a squad. All right, I'll tell you what, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. For those of you who stuck with us for an hour and 22 minutes the day before Christmas Eve, we appreciate your support. I do need a little bit more support from you, though. If you're not subscribed to the show, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your podcast, please make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod. Also, make sure to rate and review the show. If you listen on Apple and Spotify, give us a quick 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following on social media at Aaron_Torres on Twitter, at Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Pod on TikTok as well. And then other than that, I think we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Probably no shows between now and maybe Sunday. Weird schedule. College basketball is completely off. There's not going to be a ton. I guess what I would say, go to YouTube, turn on those notifications. If Michigan hires a coach, if Jeff Brohm announces that he's coming, we're going to do stuff. I just don't know when the next actual episode of the Aaron Torres Pod is. So make sure you're locked in. We appreciate your support. And if we don't see you, and we probably won't before New Year's or before Christmas, have a very Merry Christmas. I hope everybody spend time with friends, spend time with family. Hug your mom, hug your dad if you have them, hug your sons, hug your daughters if you have them. It's a special time of year. I love doing what I do, but I also love taking a little bit of time at this time of year to enjoy with the family. So enjoy with your family. Enough weird, emotional talk from me. Torres is out. Everybody have a Merry Christmas.